For there was, alas, plenty of trouble already at large in Europe, particularly in places like Madrid. For the cities of Spain were the first to feel the breath of war in the truly modern manner. It has been said that war is but an extension of politics. True enough, particularly if it happens to be a civil war. In these cities, another kind of street decoration, another sense of values, sandbags, air raid shelters, the constant threat of sudden death. On the walls of besieged Madrid, government posters urged its citizens to make yet another greater effort to beat back the enemy. For this was a war in which all people were soldiers, for the soldiers were the people. You just did what you were told and fought. From the heights overlooking Madrid, the fascist artillery beat at the stubborn city's defenses. Madrid had known so much of this now, there seemed little reason why the hell shouldn't last forever. A strange kind of war, modern and yet curiously amateur. For let's face it, most who fought in it were amateurs, self-taught in a hard school of urgent, violent battle. But not all amateurs. For this war was a testing ground for professionals too. Wasn't young Bruno Mussolini flying for Franco? Such was the Spain of 1937. Her bull rings full of men and women lusting not for the blood of toros, but of the enemy. Marching in Spain. Marching in Britain, but for quite another reason. Now in London, the time was drawing near, and already the visitors were arriving in shoals. Visitors such as that young man from Egypt. Oh yes, Farouk. Last touches to the decorations. But who is this putting there, or rather their ladder in? Flanagan and Allen, having discovered that certain of the post-support torches decide to save fuel bills by doing their cooking in Oxford Street. Ah, well, it's all in the spirit of the moment. But let's hope there's no policeman around. How aloof Britain seemed from the cares and black clouds of the world. True, there were ack-ack guns on show in London, encouragement to join the territorial army, but by and large, people put their faith in the League of Nations and just hoped for the best. The League, the dream, the hope. In the last few years, peace in the form of collective security, which was the aim of the League, had suffered several unpleasant setbacks. And though delegates might try to put a good face on things, it could not be denied that Japan's walkout, Italy's conquest of Abyssinia, and Europe's general rearmament trend were bad omens for the future. And now there was this question of China. China, the oldest of lands, the land with the most people on earth. What happened to all those shifting, restless millions was something vitally important to the whole world. Besides, the world had big stakes in China. Her ports were crammed with the shipping of all nations, for this was a land of enormous wealth. Cities like Shanghai were marketplaces where could be seen every flag, every trademark. But among the foreigners in Shanghai were those with greater ambitions than mere trade. In their tight, overcrowded little islands, the Japanese cherished a sense of values all their own. As Japan emerged from her long seclusion into the modern world, her leaders, inspired by the old traditions that besought all to die for their country's honor, looked for expansion and conquest. The Western world had given them the battleship, the gun, the bomb. Now they searched for the chance to put them to good use. Japan had an army, large and excellently trained. A navy too, powerful and ambitious. It was only a question of when and where. A morning in 1937, the coast of China, close to Shanghai, an armada of warships and transports loaded with troops. And when the first naval shells struck at the land, the invasion of the Asiatic mainland had begun. Over Shanghai, Japanese planes began a systematic softening up. The first bombs of World War II. For it was there on the beaches of China, as far back as 1937, that in truth the second great struggle for the world began. A struggle that was to end in the collapse of Germany and the first atomic bombs on Japan. But who was to know that then? The battle for the great city of Shanghai was intense and hard fought. In it, all the age-old bitterness between Japanese and Chinese found vent. A fight to the finish. Thus did flames and smoke rise over one of the greatest cities in the East. Its one untouched segment, the many-flagged international settlement. There, British, American, French, and others watched the agony of Shanghai as an audience on the sidelines. Once again, as in the past, they reinforced their own defenses, taking no chances. Driven by fear, thousands of Chinese seek admittance into the settlement. Their only desire, security from the hail of bombs and shells. Some are allowed through, but the settlement is small. There has to be a limit. And at times it seems that all Shanghai is at the gates. There, reflected on 1,000 faces, the suffering face of China, unjustly attacked, exploited, and robbed of her proper destiny. As the battle for the city reaches a climax, so the pressure intensifies. The pressure of a China appealing to the world to help her in her agony. But the West closed her gates on the East, as though China's struggle was something beyond its responsibility. If there was one moment of death for the League of Nations, surely it was here. Its funeral note, the clang of all barring gates.